Start out the rose bouquet by painting an angled rose. For this rose, we want to see more of the sides and bottom petals. Next, add in another angled rose, this time making the rose face the other direction. My first rose ended up being around 2 inches wide, and since I want the 2 roses to be the same size, I started the second rose about 1 inch away from the first. You can adjust the spacing of your roses depending on how wide your first one ends up being. A good rule of thumb is to just divide the width of your first rose in half, and then that's how far away you'll start your next rose. Because we are painting a bouquet, it's okay if these roses overlap a little bit. Next, I'm adding in another angled rose just below my first flower and slightly more to the left. We're starting with that triangle shape and then going from there. I'm adding in a few smaller buds and less opened roses directly next to my first roses, again working in groups of 3. Now I'm going to add in the stems of my flowers. Make sure your roses are completely dry before you add in the stems, or the green and pink may bleed together. It is totally okay if they do bleed together, but just for the sake of this lesson, make sure they're dry before you add in your stems. You'll want to paint in slightly curved lines starting where the centers of your flowers would be, and then running the line to the center of the bouquet. Some of the stems are going to be a lot longer than others, just because I want all of the stems to kind of end in the same place. It's easier to start the stems where the flower is, working your way down, than to start at the bottom and work the stems up. Now that we've got our roses and stems in place, we need to balance out the bouquet by adding in leaves. Start by adding leaves toward the base of the bouquet and then working your way up, adding leaves where there is a little bit of empty space. You can keep the edges of your leaves smooth or give them a little bit of texture as you go. I've added an extra layer to these leaves just because they weren't as dark as I wanted them to be. You don't need to add another layer unless you want to. Continue adding leaves until your bouquet feels balanced to you. I'm going to stop my leaves right here and then add in a little bit of texture by adding in little groups of dots so the bouquet doesn't feel as plain. I'm finishing off the bouquet by adding more paint to the centers of my roses.